Well, I think the youth programs that you have are incredible because over these last couple of days, one of the big topics was the fact that youth involvement in sports isn't as large as it used to be in the past. So how important do you feel that it is to get those youth and the children involved?
No, I mean, that's a really good question, and I think part of what we see our role is ensuring that kids get out of the house, and it is as important as it is for, people like Chris Bosher when he was a kid to learn computer skills. It's also important, as he did, that he get out and get in shape and eat properly, and be a multi-dimensional person. And I think what we've learned through the NBA, part of what with our programs, is that we go out and we say, all right, it's important to be fit. Of course, very few kids are ever going to develop into NBA, or I should say WNBA players, because of course we work with girls as well. But we say, look at basketball teaches teamwork, something that's critically important for business, not just for sports. We encourage proper nutrition. We encourage kids to be fit. And all those are important values to live a full life, not just to, of course, be a professional athlete.
So now, let's say you're speaking to a group of children right now. What type of advice would you give them to help motivate them or inspire them to attain those professional levels, and not only in basketball, but sports across the board?
What I have to say to kids is the same thing I've learned from the NBA players, is that you have to take whatever your God-given skills are, whether those happen to be performing on the court or because you're a good student or because you love music, and and try your hardest to become the best you can in that field. And I really think so many of the NBA players I've talked to have had success in their careers, and again, WNBA players too, talk about perseverance. They talk about, it's amazing. Virtually every NBA player I've ever met has told me there were two guys that they knew in high school who were better than they were, but who I've never heard of and never made it to the NBA. And the difference was they were willing to work harder, and that they persevered and that they overcame obstacles. And I think it's the same message for kids who want to become doctors, who want to become lawyers, or any of the other jobs that go with working in the NBA office. I mean, I often talk to kids and tell them about all the things we do at the NBA, and I say, do you want to make it to the NBA one day? And they say, yeah. And I say, well, you got a lot better chance making it in the NBA as a lawyer, as an accountant, as a salesman, as somebody who works on the merchandising, or somebody who works in our PR department. Those are all jobs that you can work at the NBA, even if you don't have those special skills or the height or the athleticism necessary to be one of the best basketball players in the world.
Let's flip that, and now who is it that has inspired you, or maybe if it's a player that you looked up to when you were younger, to help get to the position that you are in today?
When I was younger, I was a big baseball fan. I remember when I was a little kid, there's a player that I'm sure none of the kids have heard of, Mickey Mantle, was somebody, somebody who I looked up to. I have an older brother who was a big fan of Mickey Mantle's, and I grew up in New York, and he was a New York Yankee, so he's someone I cared, really followed. I'd say as I got a little older, I was also growing up in New York. I was a big fan of the New York Knicks, and there was players like Willis Reed, who famously overcame an injury to lead the Knicks to the champions of the NBA, to the NBA Finals. I would say, there was, going back a little bit, I remember always hearing so much about Bill Russell, who won so many great championships. So, and even in my career in the NBA, Michael Jordan, who isn't one of those players who says he knew two guys in high school who was better than he was. He was always the best. But I would say, I have been influenced by watching players like Michael Jordan, who I've known when he played in the league, that he had personal issues in his life, or he had injuries, or he had just difficult situations that maybe the public didn't know about. Yet he still came out every time, and he knew that that fans were in the arena that day. It might be the only chance that they were going to get to see Michael Jordan play. And he knew that for that fan, this was a special moment in their lives, and he couldn't let them down. So every time he came out on the court, he gave his all. And, obviously he was incredibly successful, but he didn't always hit the winning shot. But I think the one thing he knew he could control was always working as hard as he possibly could.
If only everybody could live by that work ethic, right? And now finally, before we let you go, Adam, where would you like to see the NBA, how would you like to see it grow and evolve in the next 5 years, let's say?
In the next 5 years, I'd like to see us continue to grow outside the United States. I mean, we're a very mature business in the U.S. By mature, I mean that for the most part, our arenas are full or they're 90% full. We have great television contracts. We're on ABC, we're on ESPN, we're on TNT. We even have our own network, NBA TV. But I think there's a real opportunity outside the United States to continue to grow our business. For example, in China, you know, that we have now in the NBA a player named Yao Ming, you know, who grew up playing basketball in China. Many people don't realize that. They see that he's 7'6" and think, okay, he's just so tall, so he plays basketball. In fact, he played basketball from a very young age in China, and he's inspired lots of other Chinese kids to play basketball as well. And I think from an NBA standpoint, that gives us an opportunity to grow our business in China, to get more kids playing. I think not just in China. In Europe, basketball is very popular. In Italy, in France, Germany, and England, kids are beginning to play as parts of school programs. In India, basketball is just beginning to break through. Maybe in cricket, a sport you may never have heard of, is the #1 sport in India, but we're hoping at least to make basketball the #2 sport. So I'd say our goal is to continue to grow the game around the world and making sure kids grow up bouncing basketballs rather than kicking basketballs, meaning that's soccer, the sport they play outside the United States.
Well, thank you so much, Adam, for taking the time with us. Truly a pleasure to have you. And best of luck as you help the NBA grow.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jackie.
Absolutely.
Pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure.